What's going on, YouTube? It is the Dual Threat Podcast here, your daily news source for all things sports. I'm Drew. This is Jacob. Going straight into it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell and comment any differing opinions you have. We're going straight into the top 10. The college football playoffs top 10 just came out over 20 minutes ago, and we're going to go ahead and talk about ours. And so, Jacob, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so the college football playoff committee decided to put in a Big 12 team, and I actually have a different Big 12 team than I put at my number 10. They put Iowa State at number 9. I'm putting Oklahoma at number 10. The reason for this, Oklahoma has that loss to Iowa State early in the season, basically decided by a late Spencer Rattler turnover. Third week of the year, they started 1-2. Since then, they have been dominant. Their game with Texas was close, but other than that, they have just been whooping Big 12 teams. Their most recent win coming against Oklahoma State, who was number 6 at one point, beating them 41-13. It's not close. Oklahoma looks significantly better than they did earlier in the season. Iowa State has that head-to-head. I definitely see the argument to put them above Oklahoma. I personally just think with the eye test, how Oklahoma's been playing recently, I think they are a better football team. And if they play again in the Big 12 championship, I think it'll be a pretty different outcome this time.
Yeah, so that's where I'm actually going to disagree with you. I'm going to put Iowa State at number 10, and this is strictly off of record. I think if Iowa State and Oklahoma played again, it would be a little bit different, but Iowa State has a better record than Oklahoma. They're 7-2, Oklahoma's 6-2, so technically Iowa State has a better record, plus they have the head-to-head. My issue with Iowa State and my issue with them putting them, I think, at 9, is that Texas practically handed this game to Iowa State. Texas looked like the better team. I mean, talented-wise they are. The coach is doing a great job at Iowa State. It was really, touching to watch him in that post-game conference, tearing up, talking about how much he cares about the team. I'm sure he's going to get some big job at some big college football program, whether it's like Michigan or something like that. But they do have that head-to-head win against Oklahoma earlier in the year, and they have that win over Texas, who's not ranked anymore, which I think was a good call. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think Texas is really struggling, and with their head coach probably being gone this year, it was a big win for Iowa State as a program. They're probably going to the Big 12 championship for the first time, and I think it was like 100 years or something like that. Get a chance to win that conference, and so that's why I'm going to put them in my top 10. They have the better record. They have the head-to-head, and so that's going to lead me to my number 9. And I was really down on college football rankings for putting them in the top 10 last week, but so many teams lost that I would have put in my top 10. I don't think Miami is a top 10 team. They're kind of just, grazing by these like average teams. So I can't really put them in my top 10, even though they have a pretty good record. But I mean, I guess you could say the same thing for Georgia. But my thing with Georgia is their losses come to the best teams in the SEC. I mean, they lost to Alabama and they lost to Florida. And if you're not going to punish A&M for losing to Alabama, it's kind of hard to punish Georgia for losing to Alabama and Florida, even though Texas A&M did beat Florida, and that's why they're higher than them. But yeah, I got to put Georgia at number 9. With JT Daniels, they've looked like a better offense for sure, and I think that's kind of what the missing piece that Georgia has needed this year. Their last 2 games, or their last game was pretty close, but that was his first game. This last game, they come out and I think they whooped on, was it South Carolina? I mean, that's not much of a big win, but they did beat them pretty handedly, and the quarterback looked pretty good, so I'm going to have to put Georgia there just because there's really nobody else to put there. So who do you got at number 9?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You look at the college football rankings, and they have Miami at 10, which I agree. I think they're right outside top 10. Iowa State at 9, who I put Oklahoma right above. You put them at 10. there's really nobody else to put here other than Georgia. Again, they've won the games that they're supposed to, and they've lost the games that maybe they weren't supposed to at the time against Florida, but either way, Florida's looking like the better team at this point. And they, like you said, their offense this week, they won 45-16 against South Carolina. Last week, they won 31-24, so it was close to Mississippi State, but JT Daniels absolutely lit it up. And he was kind of getting his sea legs under him. I think he brings a dynamic to that offense that is different than what Georgia is used to. And I think that moving forward, he's going to be a pretty big piece of that offense because, the beginning of the season, they just couldn't get anything going. They were relying on their defense to win games, and that was pretty much the only reason why they were winning. So, yeah, I'm going to put Georgia at 9 as well. Going into number 8, I'm actually going to drop Cincinnati one spot. I think, they won barely to UCF 36-33. This could have been the game that knocked them off. But I think the biggest thing that hurt Cincinnati this week is their one big win this season is beating SMU 42-13, who was 16 at the time. SMU just got absolutely rolled by Eastern Carolina. In the final, they only lost by 2 touchdowns, but it was not close for a significant portion of the game. They were, with 10 minutes left in the second, Eastern Carolina had a 98% chance to win on ESPN's percent predictor thing. Their one quality win just doesn't look good anymore, and I think all the hesitations you have about Cincinnati and putting them in the top 10 just got exponentially bigger because their one win is they don't have a good win anymore. And so I think that's why I'm going to drop them. Again, 7-8 doesn't really matter if the top teams don't lose anyway, but I think I'm going to drop them one spot. What about you?
I actually agree with you. I put Cincinnati at 8 as well, just because, like you said, that big win that they had that put them above BYU for me doesn't look impressive anymore. They got beat by East Carolina pretty bad. And we even had them in our Friday night lines, and we were just so shocked. We were watching that game, just kind of glancing at it because, as much as you'd love to watch a game you bet on, SMU versus East Carolina is not exactly the most fun game to watch. But I look over, and SMU's down 30 points. It was a shocker. And so that's why I'm going to go ahead and talk about my number 7. I've got BYU. BYU hasn't cranked the top 10 on the college football playoffs. I think that's a mistake, but my thing is BYU's win over Boise State looks exponentially better than every win that Cincinnati has. And even better than that win against UCF. And so that's why I'm confused as to why they have BYU so all the way down at 14 or 13 this week, I think, and Cincinnati at 7. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But I guess they can't really flop it that much after the first rankings, but I would put BYU above Cincinnati personally, like I do right here, just because, that win is not that impressive. So I'm assuming that's who you have at number 7 as well, but maybe you shock me. Let's see. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm very confused as to why, just like you said, as to why Cincinnati is number 7 and BYU's not even close. Like we talked about last week, they put BYU at 13. Oregon was 14. Oregon obviously lost, but it feels like them putting them that far down was just them telling everybody, hey, no matter what they do, they're not making the playoff. And I don't really know why. BYU's 9-0. Cincinnati's 8-0. It's the same thing. They beat teams by 40. They're the exact same team, and I don't see how you can put – I get maybe Cincinnati a couple ranks above them, but 6 ranks above them makes no sense to me. They're just coming off – again, it's North Alabama. It doesn't matter really, but 66-14 against anybody is huge. Like you said, that Boise State game, Boise State has won both of their games since then, and they're 4-1. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense why the playoff committee just decides, you know what, Cincinnati, because because for whatever reason, because they're in the same conference as UCF, that they're going to put them top 10 and leave BYU out in the dirt. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I agree. I think this week they're the same team, and I just give BYU the slight edge after a big win this week. Getting into the top 6, I think it's going to get a little spicy here. We'll see, though. Number 6, I have the Texas A&M Aggies. If you're an Aggie fan, don't panic. This literally means nothing. They're still 5 in the college football playoff rankings. If they were 6, it still would mean nothing. The thing is, they looked bad. And on offense. We'll talk about defense, but they looked bad on offense. And that is something that I just couldn't really get rid of. Jimbo Fisher said that Kellen Mond has been practicing these last few weeks, even with the COVID restrictions or cautions, and he can't come out and do that. He was 11 for 34. Like, in a rival game at home, you can't do that if you're expecting to win football games, especially against better teams than 3-3 LSU. Their defense looked elite, but until I see something better out of Kellen Mond, I'm going to need to slip them down a little bit. Again, they're 6. Florida is either going to beat Bama and stay ahead of you or lose to Bama and drop behind you, so it doesn't matter at this point. I just think after that game, I had to drop them just a little bit because it was tough to watch on offense. I'm not going to lie. It was not ideal. LSU's defense has been bad. They have that one good corner, but yeah, their offense could get nothing going against a bad defense. That being said, their defense, I'm not just trying to absolutely obliterate their whole team. Their defense looked great. They may or may not have forced that one wide receiver to sit out for the rest of the season after LSU just could do nothing on offense, and that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I had to drop them this week. They had the head-to-head over Florida. Technically, they have a worse record just because they've played less games. I think eventually it's all going to sort itself out how it should. Either A&M is going to – Florida beats Bama, and they're the clear better team than A&M, and it was a fluke win when they played, or Florida loses to Bama. A&M has the record. A&M has the head-to-head, and they go in front of them. So, yeah, that's who I have at 6. What about you?
So I might shock a few people. I actually have Ohio State at number 6, and this is strictly off of number of games played, opponents played, and the possibility of them not playing a Big Ten championship. And a lot of people have been wondering if Ohio State should even get in if they are 5-0 and they don't have a Big Ten championship. I don't know if they do, and I think with a 9-1 A&M or a 10-0, I think it would be Cincinnati. I don't see how they could get in when a team has played twice as many games and has proven themselves twice as much. I don't see how you could let them in, especially with the teams that like A&M has to play. Like they beat Florida. I think that's a better win than Ohio State will have all year, but at least until the playoffs if they make it. And so that's why I have Ohio State at number 6. They played Indiana. They were a close game with Indiana, and Indiana did beat Maryland pretty handedly last week. But I think where I put Ohio State next week will really depend on A, if they end up playing, and B, how Indiana looks against Wisconsin. But the problem is Wisconsin, I don't know where to put Wisconsin either. So, because they lost to Northwestern, who lost to Michigan State. And so the eye test is just getting very complicated in the Big Ten just because of teams losing to teams they shouldn't and teams beating teams they shouldn't. And it's just, I don't know. Ohio State is at number 6 for me. They're not at Florida and A&M just because of games played. I think the Big Ten really messed up waiting to play only 8 games and just not having a chance of postponing games and only canceling. And like they were talking about on ESPN, Michigan could easily just opt out of playing Ohio State and screw their chances of going to the playoffs. And as a rival, if you can't win, they just might do it. I don't know, especially if Jim Harbaugh knows that he might lose his job. You never know. But So that's who I've got at number 6. Justin Fields didn't look good the last time we saw him. Their defense was really struggling, in the secondaries especially were struggling, and so that's why I've got them at number 6. And at number 5, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to put Florida. I think you have to honor that head-to-head just because the problem with saying that A&M should be ranked below Florida, and not like it really matters because Florida still has to play Alabama, is that A&M was coming off a month break, and I'm going to give them a little leniency. They were shutting out LSU until 30 seconds left in the game, which is impressive to me. I mean, LSU has scored in the 40s and the 50s until they played Arkansas and Auburn, which we've talked about have had a pretty good defense this year, but and A&M held them to half of what they averaged between those two teams, and that was just a garbage time touchdown. So I'm going to say that A&M has a playoff defense. Their offense needs work, and whether that's good Kellen Mond needing to show up, he's had about a bajillion starts in Kyle Field. I feel like he should be there by now, but he looked like he was there, but last week he didn't. So I'm going to wait until this weekend against Auburn. I think that's going to say a lot about Texas A&M, and I'm going to go from there. But for now, I've got Florida at number 5. So who do you have?
Yeah, so like you said, I had to put my glasses on to see the eye test that was going on in the Big Ten. It is just, I have no clue what's going on for any team at all, even Ohio State. And so that's who I have at 5. When you look at it, everybody was like, Wisconsin's going to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Boom, Northwestern wins. All right. Northwestern's going to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Boom, Michigan State beats Northwestern. It's like, what is even happening? Like, is Rutgers going to play in the Big Ten championship? Like, who even knows? I'd probably pick them to win if they did. We could have one of the most bizarre, random Big Ten championships that we've had in a long time. If Ohio State misses another game, like, who really knows what's going to happen? It could be Indiana versus Iowa. Like, who would have expected that coming into the season? I mean, Ohio State's looked okay. They beat Indiana. Really, they were smacking Indiana for a lot of the game. And it wasn't until the second half that Indiana kind of started coming back and Ohio State kind of left their foot off the gas. But again, like you were saying, for all the concerns of they missed 2 games, they could miss this game. Michigan could just say, hey, we don't want to embarrass ourselves on national television. Give us the free week out. So for those reasons, I'm putting them at 5. They could be 5-0, 6-0, end up being 7-0 with a Big Ten championship win, and you got to put them in. But at this point, I think if you can't qualify for your own conference championship, how can you qualify for the college football playoff? And so that's why I'm going to put them at 5. Going into number 4, this is where I have the Florida Gators. You call me crazy, call me whatever. They have head-to-head loss. What it boils down to, in my opinion, and maybe not totally, obviously not totally, record and who you lose to has a big effect, but the eye test is big and it's real, and the Florida Gators have every bit of the eye test that Bama does, in my opinion. Offensively, they literally can't be stopped. I mean, they put up 34 against a Kentucky team that's been pretty solid against good teams. They only gave up 29 points to Auburn. They only gave up 14 points to Georgia. Again, it's Georgia. But they held them close in the first half. It was 14-10, I want to say. And then Florida really unleashed in the second half. Kyle Trask is my Heisman favorite, your Heisman favorite. Kyle Pitts is back. I really don't think there's any stopping this Florida team. And a big part of that eye test, as I was saying, that I think puts them over the edge of A&M slightly for me is you look at they lost A&M, had a game canceled, and had their bye week, I think, so they missed 2 weeks, and then come back from COVID, beat Missouri by 24 or something, 27. A&M comes back, barely wins. I say barely, but their offense did nothing. And you could argue Missouri's a better team against LSU. I mean, they have head-to-head. So, they've looked better for a lot of the season than LSU has. And so I think Florida's ability to come back from that COVID and come out firing and Yeah, their defense hasn't been great, but their offense has stepped up to cover that. And in this game, A&M's offense didn't look good. Their defense stepped up to cover that. I just don't know if they'll be able to do that against a better offense. I do think Florida can keep up with the best offenses in the country. I just don't know if A&M, if they have another offensive performance like that, if their defense can hold them. I don't even know if they can hold them against Auburn next week. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm putting Florida at 4. Drew, who do you have it for?
Well, I've got Texas A&M at number 4, and really the thing that I wanted to say is that yes, their offense looked bad, but before the 2 postponed games, they scored 40 points in 2 straight games, and against Arkansas, which has a pretty good defense, and South Carolina, which is just not a very good team. But I think they started to go on a roll offensively. They found their identity with Isaiah Spiller. I've said that 1,000 times, and I'll continue to say it 1,000 times. I think their offense really clicks when they can get the ball to Isaiah Spiller and really open up their options but the thing is, Kellen Mond's got to hit open throws, and that was their problem against LSU is he missed a lot of open throws. There were a lot of passes, and so LSU was just really challenging the run, and that's why Isaiah Spiller's stats weren't as impressive as usual, and that's why they didn't really score on offense. I mean, I was watching that game, and I bet on it, so I'm hoping A&M scores to cover, and of course they let up that touchdown with 30 seconds left to not cover, but I got the earlier line, so I'm okay. And I'm more confident when A&M is on defense than on offense to score. And I mean, they did end up scoring that touchdown. And I just felt more confident when they were on defense because I felt like at any point, Kellen Mond could easily throw an interception because he threw a lot of pretty bad passes that could have been intercepted and would have been intercepted against a better defense. And so I'm going to give A&M a little leeway. I'm going to wait to see what they do at Auburn this week. I think that's going to show a lot about their offense. I think it's going to show a lot about their team. Bo Nix was starting to click before they hit that Alabama brick wall, but I think every team has done that this year. So, yeah, I'm going to wait to see how A&M plays Auburn this week. And that might be my point where I put Florida above A&M. I know I said that against LSU, but watching the way they kind of struggled in that game, you could tell that A&M was the better team. And especially defensively, they'd stop them. But offensively is where they struggled, and it looked like it was just Rush struggled. It was like wide open passes. It wasn't, just getting beat. So that's why I'm going to give them leeway. I'm going to put them at number 4 for now. I'm going to wait to see how they play Auburn this weekend. And that's going to lead me to my number 3. And I've got Clemson. Originally, I had Clemson at 6, Ohio State at 3. Now I'm flipping them, which is a pretty dramatic flip. But watching Clemson be healthy and with Ohio State's games being canceled and the possibility of them not going to the ACC championship, I'm going to flip them. I'm going to put Clemson at number 3. I think Clemson looked like Clemson did last year. I mean, granted, it was against Pittsburgh, but they scored 31 points in the first quarter. I mean, they were almost on track to score 100. So I'm going to put them at 3. They looked good against Pittsburgh, but we'll see how they do in the ACC championship, which is really their biggest challenge for the rest of the year. So who do you got at number 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same from here on out unless you put Notre Dame at 1, but I can't expect you to do that. Clemson got Trevor Lawrence back. They showed everybody why they were number 1 preseason, why they were number 1 going into the Notre Dame game, why he was in the Heisman talks until he got COVID, why everything that you wanted Trevor Lawrence to do and you've been missing from him, he did for you. 26 of 37, 403 yards, 2 touchdowns. He changes their offense so much from when DJ was quarterbacking. You look at the Notre Dame game and people say, "Oh, DJ put up 439 yards. That's good. Like, what's Trevor Lawrence? What would he have done differently?" And it's not necessarily about the stats as much as it is the way they get to run their offense. Trevor Lawrence is a way better deep ball thrower. They're way more confident in him throwing the ball deep, and so they queue up those big plays that they can't when DJ is under center. So I think that's a big upgrade that they getting him back going late into the season. And I think you can expect big things out of the Clemson Tigers when they make the playoff and when whoever they end up playing, I think you're going to see a lot of big plays, and I would expect their defense to get a decent amount better as they get healthy too. So I watch out for Clemson. If they didn't lose to Notre Dame, I could see myself putting them at number 2. But I mean, that's who I have at number 2 as well, Notre Dame. They really showed this week that their defense is elite. If you saw the video that we posted earlier in the week, they didn't give up a point in the second half after a pretty lackluster first half from their offense. It was 17-17 and a half, which honestly is kind of what you've come to expect from Notre Dame, is to play games close. And it seemed like in the second half, their defense just flipped a switch, didn't allow a point, and allowed Ian Book to get a couple backhanded random passes off that were complete that you wouldn't really expect to see happen, but they got the job done against number 19 UNC. Can't say a whole lot of bad after winning. North Carolina moved up after playing Notre Dame so well. So, I mean, that's one thing to say about that game. But, again, their defense stepped up. Their defense didn't allow a point in the second half. And it's going to be, again, it's similar. I think of them like A&M. They have a great defense. Can they keep up on offense? Because you know that when you play Bama, they're going to expose your defense. You played Clemson, and you have that same defense, and they put up 40 on you. And it the same thing every single year. You get to the playoffs, you get to the national championship potentially, and offense wins the football game. And so it's going to be interesting to see if Ian Book down the stretch can really show that he can carry this offense, even when Bama is going to hang 40 on him. Clemson's going to hang 40 on him. Whoever they play in the playoff is probably going to hang 40 on them. So can Ian Book respond? Can Ian Book put up those points to stay competitive? We will see. But they're 9-0. They beat Clemson. They're the number 2 team in the country.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've got Notre Dame at 2. I really disagree with North Carolina moving up. I think that's really silly after they lose. I mean, what's the point of having a ranking when you move up when you lose? I understand that they played Notre Dame close, but them being the highest 3-ranked team and moving up after a loss is kind of dumb, I think, personally. But I don't know. I mean, I guess they're the experts, so we'll listen to them. But I've got Notre Dame at 2. Like we said before, their defenses looked great. I mean, they held Sam Howell to like 200 passing yards, which is impressive. He's like the second most passing leader in the league right now. And yeah, they stopped their run game, which is how you're going to beat North Carolina, and they did it very well. And so that's why I got to put Notre Dame at 2. They have an elite defense, and their offense is good. And that's where A&M struggles right now, is they look like Notre Dame on defense, but their offense is bad. And so that's why I'd probably pick Notre Dame to beat A&M, at least at this point, if they were to play this weekend. But Notre Dame's offense looks good, and their defense looks elite. And so that's why they're a playoff team as of right now. If they lose to Clemson, they still might be. But if they lose it pretty badly, then they won't be. But that's really the only way they don't get in. And I've got Alabama at number 1. I mean, pretty far ahead of everybody. They dominated Auburn this weekend and in the Iron Bowl. And a lot of people might not think it's impressive. A lot of people might think Auburn is a little overrated, but that's still a rival game, probably one of the biggest rival games in America. And Alabama handed it to them. And so you got to give them credit. And so Devontae Smith still looks like one of the best players in the league. And Mac Jones looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And so you got to honor that. Their defense has really stepped up this year. Got to put Alabama at number 1.
Yep, I mean, say all the same reasons. Nick Saban was at home watching, didn't get to play because of didn't get to coach because of COVID. And like you said, I mean, it's not like it's been super one-sided the past couple of years. Auburn won last year. Again, they didn't have Tua, but Auburn wins last year. They win in 2013, maybe. Is that when they returned the kick six? Whatever. They've won probably 3 times since 2010, and it's no just push-aside game. It's rivalry games are always big games, you look at Texas OU, no matter how bad Texas is, they're going to put up a fight and maybe come out with a win. Bama handled business 42-13. They're so far ahead of everybody else. It's insane. And they go to take on LSU, who I would assume they're going to be better than 20-7. A&M plays Auburn. That's a big game for them. We'll see how next week turns out. But as of right now, Bama's number one, not even close. So.
Yeah, so there you have it for, what is this, the fourth consecutive week of us ranking Alabama's at number one. It's going to continue to stay that way unless Alabama loses, really. I can't see anybody else jumping them. Even if Notre Dame were to come out and beat Clemson by 20, I think I'd still put Alabama at number one just because of, they've beat 2 top 10 teams by 30. So that's just where I'm at. I've got Alabama at number one. You've got Alabama at number one. We've had Alabama at number one. And so that's going to wrap up our video. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well. It helps us out a lot. Hit the like button, comment any differing opinions you have. Maybe y'all think Coastal Carolina should be in the top 10. I think we're going to have an interesting video about them coming up later this week, maybe, or somebody else, but we'll see. Thank y'all for tuning in and have a great day.